Well, hello everyone. Thank you for joining our webinar this morning. We'll wait just a minute or two for any late attendees, but it's great to see such a big audience. These AI events we're running have been very, very popular with like well over 100 participants each time. So that's good to see. If one of the team, my team, wants to keep letting people in because it's beeping in my ear while I'm talking. But I think it's time for us to start going now. So let me move on to what we're going to cover. So hosts today are mainly myself and my colleague Alan Reed, who will be presenting in just a few minutes. We've also got some technical backup from a colleague, Chris Lightley. So the way we run these webinars, we're recording it. What we'll do is we'll share the session, we'll publish the whole video so anyone can watch it on demand, and we'll also share the slides after the event as well. Chat's enabled for everyone, so please use that. If you've got any questions or points you want to make, we've got a slot for Q&A right at the end, so we can pick up and answer some of those. Yeah, I hope you enjoy it. So the agenda today. Firstly, we'll be talking a little bit more about AI, but particularly around member engagement and where we think it can help that and how it helps your staff focus more on member engagement and your members become more engaged. A little bit about security and governance. I know that a lot of people we talk to say, look, this sounds good, but I don't know really where to start and I don't know how safe it is. So we'll cover a little bit of that. Part 3 is me talking to one of our long-term customers, a guy called Adam Richardson, who's done amazing work around this area already. We've done some good stuff in FIA, so we'll be covering a lot of different areas in that conversation. And then we've got the Q&A itself. So without, well, that's the end of my introduction. I'd like to hand over to Alan, and then I'll pick up again later and we'll have this conversation with Adam.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Steve. So good morning, everybody. My name is Alan Reed. I'm an independent consultant to the membership and wider not-for-profit space. And I've been working on member engagement projects and how to prove value to your members since the 90s. So this whole AI-driven thing is fantastically exciting, and I'm delighted to be working with some organizations that are grabbing hold of it early and using it for the benefit of their members and their staff. So let's talk about that and how that works before we hear from Adam and Steve about how it works in the real world at the Fire Industry Association. So first of all, AI-driven member engagement. I prefer to call it AI enhanced rather than AI driven, because the people side is still very much a part of it. Is still very much the key factor of how it works. So it's AI enhancement of people's work as they do these things here that you're already doing. That you just wish you had more time to do, and that you wish you had more time to get into those neglected areas of the membership, deliver benefits to this group that need to be paid attention to, and make sure that you're always doing things in a very personalized way. So essentially, what you'll hear, whilst AI is incredibly new and the tools that are available are incredibly new and empowering, the things that people want to do with them and need to be able to do with them are the same things. It's just that you're now more able to do them than you were before. So if we talk about the kind of things that people are using AI tools to deliver, so then we can expand on them a little bit. And these things do tend to be the things that you should be doing, and should be part of your delivery, and would have benefits for you and your members, but who's got time? And the systems are very poor at delivering them, and it all seems such hard work that people give up. So personalization of campaigns and content is a whole big thing, but the way that AI-driven campaigns are managed is that you can set things up so that it checks things about the individual and then sends either that or sends that. it'll take that step or take that step, depending on the your interaction, your history, your knowledge of that individual. And when we get to the bottom one, jumping ahead a bit, member journey mapping, easier than it's ever been to be able to say, if I do this campaign, this multi-step campaign with a welcoming email and then an invitation to join this event and a bit of content that I'm sending a week after that, if they respond, do that. If they don't respond in 2 days, do this other thing. That's now much more visual than it ever was before. The AI is doing most of the work of laying out the journey for you. So non-technical people can get hold of it in a much more easy way, in a much more sophisticated way than they ever were before. There are things like predictive analytics and reporting. AI within Dynamics or within Office tools, etc. You can just use plain language English and say, give me a list of these, show me people who've done that but have not done that. And it will take care of knowing which data fields underlie your query. It'll take care of understanding how your data is arranged, and then just go with your plain language English, a bit like a better version of a Google search. And then give you your data back. And then you can say, oh, can I have that in a pie chart? Can I have that in this different way? Again, all in plain language English, and it will do it for you. You'll hear Adam talking a lot about how he's an early adopter when it comes to assistants taking on things that would normally be done by a human being instead of they're supervised by a human being. So I won't get into too much of that. A big thing that AI is doing for people is in the area of content generation. So instead of starting everything from scratch from a blank sheet of paper, which no one's got time to do, or just sending the same stuff to everyone, it's incredibly easy now for an individual, instead of producing one piece of content a week or one piece of content a day, to be producing multiples of that in terms of volume. So it means that you can create sector-specific, segment-specific areas of content that are of interest to this group and that group. So this is how this relates to new joiners. This is how it relates to people in the middle of their career. Here's what people need to be worrying about at this if you're interested in these things. And actually, you can get it generated, in minutes. And then it's available to you to start using with the other tools to get it out and in front of everyone. So incredibly empowering. But there are some words of caution around that as well. So let's talk about that really briefly. So as part of this preparation, we've had people mention this is like the kind of Jeff Goldblum character in Jurassic Park saying, you can't have all of this stuff. You can't have messing around with all of these things without expecting some dire consequences. Well, it's not necessarily dire consequences, but you do have to be a little bit cautious about how these things are used. And to the credit of the membership sector, it's some of the most common questions that we get around this as well. So yes, it's easy, it's quick, and actually it's remarkably inexpensive when you look at what it's able to do for you. But it also introduces new issues. When you get any kind of new technology, there are issues that you hadn't even imagined going to take place. So what happens with one of the most common things that people use AI technology for is generating content, whether it's a newsletter, whether it's something to go up on your website, something for LinkedIn, etc. So generating content, probably 80% of what some organizations use AI for. And it's introduced a whole bunch of new problems. This is from a report by McKinsey. So essentially, if you get into the habit of just saying, write me a thing about that, and then it goes jump, 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 and writes you a thing about that, it's very easy for staff to lose the habit of checking it and looking at it like, oh, well, if I just went and dragged somebody in off the street and asked them to do this thing, then of course it may be good, it may be bad. So in the McKinsey report, it's very interesting. It talks about these areas here. So appropriateness, it can misunderstand some words that you're using because some words are used in multiple ways, and of course, industry specific. It can make stuff up. It literally talks about hallucinations, where it's got a whisper of some piece of content relating to your industry, and then it just writes more stuff about that. So when it comes to your responsibility for regulatory compliance, especially technical content, you have to be double checking all of that. It can produce very flabby copy that it is going to have all sorts of irrelevant stuff in there that you need to be pruning very hard, and then of course making sure that your original goals with the material are being met, so that it's a valid piece of content, and making sure, by the way, that you're not unconsciously using other people's content without the citation being provided for it. So accidental plagiarism is a thing. So essentially, this just means there's no such thing as a free lunch. So great, multiple times the amount of content you're able to provide before, but it's still very much a supervision. It's very much an editor role to make sure it's working for you. And then what we also see is very common questions from people, which is things like, is it GDPR compliant? Will my data be sent off to the US and used to train ChatGPT? Well, those are slightly different questions. But so in terms of GDPR compliant, my line has always been that it's up to you as an organization, no matter what the tools you're using are, to make sure that anything you're sending to people is not going to annoy them, and that they're expecting it, and that they've approved it. So whatever you're using to generate the content, all of those responsibilities still apply. But then the bit where GDPR and sending your data off to the US to train ChatGPT comes together. So your AI tool is not sending your data of individuals and personal relevant information, so that doesn't worry GDPR in that context. There is a risk when you're asking your AI tool to review any content for you. So it's very common, for instance, you can write a report and you think, oh, it's 1,000 words. I'd really like that to be 500 words. Well, you can give that to Copilot or ChatGPT and say, oh, make that 500 words, and it'll do it. The problem that you could have there is that if that report is confidential, you've just given it to the AI tool to do that. So the wisdom is, don't give your AI tool anything to work on or edit or what have you that you don't want the AI tool to know about. So confidential still means confidential, and care still needs to be applied. Another common question that we get is, with AI tools being so new, is there a risk of the Wild West in terms of data security, IP, and content use? And the answer to that is absolutely yes, there is. And this is where Adam, I've heard Adam talk about this before, and it's very, very interesting. As an organization, what the FIA have done is set up rules. They've embraced the technology and said, don't hide it. And the opposite of that is what a lot of organizations do, where they don't really acknowledge that AI is going to be used for a lot of what people do for a living. So, and people don't want to say, oh, this used to take me 3 hours, now it's taking me 3 minutes. So it gets hidden. Staff members don't talk about it, the management don't talk about it, and what happens is you have no control then, where people are introducing tools that you have no idea what they're using to do their jobs. Content and tools. So the idea is very much so that, yes, there is a risk of this, and this is where you as an organization need to set up rules. You need to set up a framework that people know what they're doing, and they don't have to hide what they're doing, so that you can control and have some rules and governance and guardrails around that. So the really what it comes down to, some final thoughts on this before we go to Steve and Adam. The final thoughts on this is that with AI tools, incredibly empowering, incredibly time-saving, of staff members. And it is true that absolutely members are going to come to expect this from other organizations and other providers. But the reality is that you are still responsible for all of your own content. I know that sounds childishly obvious, but if you're just allowing people to use these tools without any rules or governance around it, then you lose control of that, your own content. So setting up clarity around that is very, very important. And then coming to the last points I'd like to make, the key words to think about in terms of getting the good stuff from AI and not getting the bad stuff are framework and governance. And what I mean by that
Adam, I think your messaging is going rather glitchy, I'm afraid. So maybe it's time to sort of hand over.
Oh, okay. Are we having talk? This is my last slide.
Sometimes
anyway.
Your voice is dropping out, so apologies to everyone.
Okay.
But we can see the words on the screen.
Sure. The final thing I would say then is using a tool set that has governance built in tends to be easier. So if people are running around using different tools that they found for free off the internet, it's very hard to have control. Microsoft, to their credit, with their big investment in OpenAI technology, have set up guardrails and set up rules and governance around the AI-driven tools. So it's easier to have the best of both if you're using a proper structured framework like that. And with that, Steve, could I hand over to you?
Thank you. So thanks, Alan. I think it's always useful to start these things with some words of caution, which Alan's given some good guidelines and frameworks around that. Now, what we're going to move on to is a conversation between myself and Adam Richardson from FIA. We've been working with FIA since 2012, and in the last 18 months, specifically around the whole area of AI. So there's a lot of experience and what works, what doesn't work that's been discovered there. And we've also produced quite a lot of supporting collateral or help other people get going. So we'll come on to how you can get hold of that as well in a minute. But if I introduce Adam. So firstly, Adam, thank you very much for joining us today. Do you want to say a few words about yourself rather than me make it up?
Good crikey. Hi, thanks for having me again. As Steve just said, my name's Adam. I'm the General Manager at the Fire Industry Association. We've been doing a lot on AI, and I think it's going to be good to talk about it a bit more to show where we could have maybe sped things up, some areas that we've done particularly well at, and things that we're trying to avoid next time. That's my opening bit, I think.
So we've got a whole series of questions and areas to look at. So I think the first thing really is to just describe a little bit around what FIA is, who the members are, and how you've tended to drive that member engagement with organizations and with people, either with or without AI tools. And then we'll move on a little later to look at how AI has helped you, particularly around that engagement space.
Yes, certainly. So the FIA is it's Europe's largest fire safety trade association, which seems like a bit of a weird brag, but there are quite a few. And we engage with our members across 4 key areas. Obviously, firstly is membership, where we serve their needs, represent them, offer them member benefits, all of the things that many of us would do. Secondly is training. We're the industry's largest training provider, where we offer 29 courses, be that in class, online, or even practical training. And we train around 6,000 professionals a year. There's 2 more. There's the technical side of things, where we either host or contribute to over 150 committees, councils, and working groups. So engaging with our members on more technical things, shaping the future of the industry. And lastly, the most fun bit is events. We run around 10 events a year, from international conferences to seminars, webinars, or even lunches and exhibitions in the UK. So there's the networking element there. So I think they're the 4 key areas where we engage with our members.
And what were some of the challenges that an organisation of your size, maybe talk a little bit about your size more, what were you faced with in terms of the productivity and the volume of engagement that you could do?
Yeah, well, I think, just to be really honest with you, that's quite a lot for one organization to do. And I think it's even more to do when there's only 25 of you. That some of them haven't been in the team for that long, and we're all spread all over the UK. So it can be quite hard to manage all of that throughout the year. We've got a marketing team of 2 people, for instance, that's got to do all of the marketing for all of those engagement activities. The training team is perhaps a team of 3 people in the administration part of it and 4 trainers. So there's an awful lot of work for us to do. And as I'm sure many of you can relate to, that all sounds very good. And that's like what we do, set in stone throughout the year. But then a massive industry update will happen. Like, for instance, it could have been Brexit or COVID, or in our industry, Grenfell. And these are massive external stimuluses that we've got to react fast to and be supporting our members with. So that puts even more strain on like the day-to-day running operations of trying to deliver membership, training, technical and events. So we found ourselves getting pinched quite hard throughout the year. We've got some ambitious plans for growth, which also doesn't help with that. And so yeah, that's why we started looking into AI, because we saw, admittedly not intentionally, we just stumbled across it when I was on Twitter one day, and I thought, oh, this looks great. I was curious and a bit lazy, so I thought this could be perfect. And so yeah, we've stumbled across AI, and it's turned out to be massively transformative for how we're doing all of our day-to-day operations, as well as our engagement with our members across those 4 streams.
So in essence, you're a very focused and quite small team with a very large market space and quite a lot that's going on. So I think there's clearly advantages in being as efficient as possible and producing great content and engagement as possible. But also, that you mentioned the growth plans as well. So it sounds like tools like I know you use Dynamics, for instance, as your CRM for information, but other tools outside that have got nothing to do with Dynamics, like the AI tools that we're going to be talking about, can really help energize that. So that's a good background. So thank you. So do you want to talk a little bit about what you've been using and put in place over the last 18 months around engagement?
Yeah, certainly. So I will touch on the AI tools, as that's the whole reason we're here. But before, so it's keen to note that we've been doing digital transformation, looking at our marketing platform, finance platforms, and CRM. And this is where the collaboration with Smart Impact arose from with AI. Before we go into AI, customer insights has been massively transformational as well, in allowing us to automate a lot of our actions and communications to a lot of our members. And it's actually a great way for AI to feed into those tools. But if we were just to exclude our CRM and things that are connected in that almost arena of tech, and we were to look at what we've done with AI, so I think it was over like the last year and a half, little by little, step by step, we now find ourselves in a position where we've got 100 AI assistants across 12 different departments of the business. There's a lot more in production, and people have always got new ideas of little things that they want to try and build or solve. So we're always working on those as well. But this covers things like operations, training, events, membership, marketing, finance, HR, sales, technical, customer service, and then strategy stuff, projects. So that's a really wide range of AI tools. Some of them are directly related to membership engagement, like events, membership, training, technical. But those other ones are really important for allowing us to do all of almost the business admin that underpins everything we've got to do to engage with our members. So that's the area of which we have the AI assistants. And I think it's important to note that these aren't really super duper high-tech, complex AI assistants. If they were, I wouldn't be talking about them because I wouldn't be able to do them. But we've built them in a way whereby each AI assistant is just functionally excellent at doing its role. So let's say we've got one for content creation. It's just brilliant at doing the task of writing content. But what we found at the start is if you were to put loads of information about your organization into the brain of the assistant, that's not very scalable, because whenever you wanted to change anything, you had to fundamentally redo every part of the instruction to the AI assistant. And we were just launching FIA Cyprus, our first international branch. And so instead of continuing down that path, we've doubled down on making the AI assistants really great at their given function. And we developed something called the core document approach, which you can see is the circle on your screen there. So we were able to distill down into 5 documents, which are about 5 to 10 pages long each, and they're structured data, everything that all of our AI assistants would need to know. So that's a business overview, a brand book, SEO, target audience, and products and services. And this was a real game changer, to be honest, because it meant that you can focus just on making assistants great at their task. But the best thing is with that is that we could then just give them all to FIA Cyprus and say, if you just create 5 core documents, which we can do for you, you can literally plug them in and you'll have access to this whole suite of AI assistants overnight. And there's not a lot out there. We tried looking to buy something like this. There was not an option out there of these simple to set up, quite powerful plug and play AI solutions. So that allowed us to do some pretty good work in Cyprus. There was only one person out there. That was me. We got 50 members, did a 300-person conference, and set up a trade association. And that was very much built on the hard work of these AI assistants that we'd just pretty much finished finalizing at that point then. I'll do, as it's on the screen, I'll tell you about it. So on the left-hand side is a bit more information about the rest of the AI system. So we built all of these in ChatGPT teams, they're custom GPTs, and I think I'll talk more about that later. So the core documents is what makes it scalable and plug and play, whilst also being highly tailored to our business. And actually, sorry, I forgot to say, every single assistant has those 5 core documents in their brain. So whether it's one in HR, marketing, or events, they all have that data about our company. And we actually go one step further than that. We instruct each assistant to look for certain key pieces of data in those documents so that they're getting the right information at the right time. Because let's say the content creation assistant probably cares more for brand book and SEO, whereas a technical assistant might not really care for the brand book and SEO as much, but might be more interested in target audience and products and services. Anywho, probably getting too much into it, so sorry about that. Going back to the rest of the instructions, yeah, we give all of our assistants a goal, role, audience, format, and tone, rules and steps. They have the 5 core documents. We put some templates in there so that we're making sure their outputs are structured, accurate, and consistent. So they're the AI tools, or the suite of AI tools that we've created. And I'm sorry if that was a bit of a rambling. Sometimes I get a bit excited about it. It's sad.
Yeah.
So if I summarize, essentially what we've created is around 100 or so different AI assistants that will do specific roles, specific tasks, and they can be connected together in different ways. But each of them is referring back to just 5 core documents, which make it specifically FIA in the UK, or with some changing FIA in Cyprus, or it can be transported to any organization. So from what you're saying, Adam, a number of the members of the audience could take a lot of these assistants, and by helping create and edit those 5 core documents, the assistants will be tailored to their specific requirements and start to become a lot more structured, a lot more consistent, a lot more accurate, and avoid a number of those pitfalls that Alan was summarizing earlier.
Yeah, massively, because thanks for condensing it so well and so clearly.
I could be an AI, you see.
We found that the people who we were working with to set up FIA Cyprus, they didn't have time to become proficient in AI, but they knew massively about the Cypriot market, what keywords to be saying. Most people know what they need to do and how they need to sound. and who they need to speak to. And so by making, that's where the core documents come in. And many people can just make those quite easily or have the knowledge to be able to make them. Whereas the AI and programming or developing those is slightly harder for people to pick up quite easily. So by this plug and play solution, it just means that when we go to set up our one in Ireland, which is coming over the next 6 months, we'll do the same thing again. And it's really helped us scale our growth and be more efficient with the time that we have.
So it's just a great way as acting as if you were 2, 3, 4 times the size in certain areas of, or certain departments in the organization, which is a great attribute of good AI. So okay.
Yeah. Would you want me to?
Sorry.
Sorry. Do you want me to give any examples of types of assistants that we have? Because I know it's been maybe a bit meta.
Well, funnily enough, we could talk about some of the tools now, if you like, and that's probably a good space to do it.
Yeah, cool. Fantastic. One of my PowerPoint graphics. So these assistants here, each block is a different assistant that we have. I've tried to pick out a flow of assistants that talk about engagement, so it's more relevant to today. So you could almost see each one in isolation. You could just use it, pick it up, put it down, and do a given task. But beyond just having an individual assistant, you can also interconnect these assistants. So it's really simple. You just press 2 buttons and then start talking to the new one. And the new assistant will come in, read everything that you've done above, but it will bring all of its expertise, being functionally excellent, and bring all of its knowledge that it needs to do that given task into your workflow. So,
Adam, what's the advantage of breaking that into lots of modules rather than having one great big massive thing that does that job?
Well, when we tried to do it, obviously I said we've been trialing and making so many errors along the way, but we tried to do everything in one. So we had like a training bot that would do reviewing, planning, building, exams, and it just wasn't able to cope with it. You only have a short, I think it's 8,000 character limit for being able to instruct it. So in order to be able to control it, to do a multitude of different complex tasks was really hard, and we weren't able to control the variance. But hey, that was useful because then we realized that, well, you can just interconnect them and make each one functionally excellent at its given task, and you're able to chain them together, which was really cool. So this flow here, we spend a lot of time updating our training courses. They're based on British standards and regulations and legislation, and there's a big change coming up in December. And this can take our technical team a few weeks to a month to go through 300 slides, updating all of the bits that have changed or even adding in new sections. Whereas now, we've got that from about a month down to a few days or a week. So what we can do is we upload the course and any materials into the reviewer, and it will compare the course that we have to the standard that we're using and give you a gap analysis. It will say, here are the areas that you don't cover, here's what you do really well, here's some new areas. You can then send that to the training planner that will say, okay, I can see your original course and what's missing. Do you want me to make a plan on how we could add 20 more slides in? And by the way, all of these interactions with the assistants, it's not like you drop something in and then it just goes through and it comes out and it looks completely different to what you wanted. At every single changing between the assistants, you have a massive ability to be influencing what's happening. You should be saying what you don't like. You could be getting it to ask you more questions about what you're trying to do so that AI better understands you. So that everything that you're doing with each assistant is good enough to then go to the next one. And that's really important for us because it's about AI helping humans to do a bit better and to go a bit faster rather than AI just doing everything. So we've saved a lot of the time on the admin of writing things up, of reading, of planning, and we've reinvested that time into the editing and the reviewing and thinking. So we're actually getting, you could argue, more bang for our buck from our staff. They're really smart, who have just been tied up in admin, and now they're able to use their brain power a bit more. So
one of our other customers came up with the idea. He understood that artificial intelligence sounded a little bit, well, artificial, a bit false and whatever. But so exactly to your point of getting somewhere faster and better and then applying your own brain to it, he's renamed it in his own organization assisted intelligence. And so the tools go out and find content and collate content and create content, but then the staff then apply their own intelligence to making it exactly what they want, which I think assisted intelligence works very well. But can I just check some of the things, like in your training courses? I'm guessing that accuracy is vital, because we'll be talking about government legislation, and in your industry it's a matter of life and death as well. So how do you make sure, or you're totally comfortable, but how do you make sure you're totally comfortable that AI is being very accurate to the degree that you need it to be in the fire industry?
yes, it's a fair question. I almost think it's the wrong way of thinking about it. It's we haven't changed anything. We still expect our team, who are really competent individuals, to produce high quality outputs that are technically correct. That hasn't changed. We've just deployed AI to help them do it a bit faster in some areas. So that's where I think that was a bit of a crap answer, to be fair, but try and be a bit better. We've made all of these AI assistants, and the workflows between them need human interaction in between. So humans are inherently part of the whole process. Throughout the training, we've taught them many ways of how you work with AI to reduce the variance of outputs to increase the quality and the structure. And also by making them AI assistants from the start, rather than having like a chat, whereby that can be completely open-ended and not very narrow. There's some ways that we've mitigated the variance of AI to start with. But ultimately, we can do so well, but we still need our staff to always be checking it, always be reviewing it, because we're saving them time elsewhere. So there's even less reason not to check things, not that they would have in the first place. Shall I carry on with this flow really quickly?
Yes, please.
Okay, so you've done the gap analysis. You can make a plan for the new training course, which you can then send to the training builder. This will build out the slides, so title, slide content. You can even use AI to generate AI images, although I wouldn't recommend it. So what we did is we got it to search on iStock, which was our image provider, for suitable photos. It can also write the speaker notes however you want it to do. Literally write out the full thing, or just do keywords depending on what the presenter's style is. You can then send that to the exam builder that will be referencing against the initial source material and build you out whatever type of exam that you want, be that multi-choice, written answers, a mix of the two. Okay, so you've now just made your training course and updated it. Cool. There's still a lot more work to do in order to get this out to your members. So you can send that to the marketing planner. He'll build you out a plan, look at your target audience and think, well, who's this going to be relevant to? Ask you a few questions on your timeline, your budget, and the length of the campaign, and build you out a campaign to promote this new course, which you can then send to the content creator who knows your SEO and keywords, who can then write up each element of that marketing campaign. And let's say you needed to update a landing page. You can either paste in the landing page or get it to search for it, and it will be able to either restructure or update the content of that landing page or web page from the content from the content creator. And lastly, if you wanted to create a short LinkedIn campaign on this, direct messaging, or an email on customer insights, you could bring in your sales assistant that can go through, review all that's been done, and then generate a sales campaign for it. And lastly, it's always just useful to finish this off with the executive assistant, who's like your AI sidekick, where you can write up all the work that you've just done, communicate that to your management team, maybe inform your staff who needs to do what as a result of all that you've just done. That's if one person was doing this, but the likelihood is that multiple people would be working on different elements of this, but that's just an indicative bird's eye view of a type of workflow that we've deployed in order to improve our engagement with our members. Sorry, I know I'm rambling on a lot here.
Well, that's fine. No, what I really like about this is the fact that it goes right through a whole process, but in different modular parts, so you can change them as you go. And I particularly like the idea, and I know you've done this in a whole range of different departments across the organization, where the AI is saying, well, look, these in this case, these courses need reviewing because they haven't been reviewed over a certain way, and it shows you where the course is not covering as much as it ought to do. So it's a very clever area of where to embellish. But also others, like you mentioned before, in conversations before about a sort of KPI or strategy assistant that starts to look at your overall corporate metrics and then helps you start to drive marketing campaigns to grow different business areas if it spots that you're behind in your particular metrics for that area. So I think that's really, really intelligent applications of it. So
but also,
if we look at the next part, I mean, I just want to pick up on a little bit in a minute or so. What were your concerns around security, and how did you address them so that you basically reduce them to a minimum?
Yeah, and it's obviously a key point with any new technology, let alone one that can be as powerful as AI. So on the governance and security side, we created a dedicated ChatGPT Teams account, and in there you dive into the settings and you turn off a few options, which stops it training the model. You can turn off the memory so it doesn't remember things. And
but there are things outside the FIA, so it still works perfectly well within the FIA.
Sorry, say that bit again.
So when you're turning off the training and turning off the data, that's external to FIA. You're stopping it getting outside FIA because you're using a Teams enterprise version of ChatGPT.
Yeah, correct. It's not training like
it's not training their stuff. It's training
the
your
master
stuff.
brain. Yeah, that maybe some people, if you haven't turned that off, it'll be feeding back to the model on the performance of certain prompts and outputs. So that doesn't happen. And we also reached out to OpenAI and did some reading, and all of their stuff is GDPR compliant as well. So that's what we did for the platform, and that satisfied our governance and data security. But it's very similar to the cybersecurity side of things. Having good platforms and technology is brilliant, but the biggest thing you've got to do is the training of your people. So it was crucial that we gave them an environment whereby they could use and benefit from AI, because as I said on a webinar before, the likelihood of your staff using AI is very high. So there's a choice. Either you set it up yourselves, or they will likely just use it on shadow IT bits, whether that's on their phone or maybe even on another computer or their work laptop, I don't know. But they will use it. There is so much benefit to be gained that they would be struggling to find reasons not to. And the worry with that is it's going to be quite hard to get them back on board, because they could have gone and created their own assistants in their own personal workspace, which means it's working for them. And then also, there's absolutely zero control over someone's personal device or account that you as a company can have. So that was the biggest thing that we did, was provide a platform, create the environment, and then do a lot of training. And in that training, you talk about how to use it responsibly, what not to do. And sorry, that was the link to cyber. It's really important. Yeah, you might have an application that blocks some links coming through that could be spam. You still need to train your team not to click on them. And that's the point there, is that training is super duper important.
Let's move to the next slide, because that actually is starting to look at the people side of it. But I think the key message that we've found across our customer base, and you've highlighted here as well, is a lot of organizations either want to governance their AI to help, in which case no one uses it, or they basically no one uses the central one, and that encourages people to start using it a bit more like the Wild West, where you've got personal accounts that you as an organization have no control about. So make it available, make it central, and then you're able to control the governance and the security side of it. But obviously this does help, or a key part of this is change management as well. So do you want to spend a minute or two on this?
Yes, certainly. Okay. So I think as a result of hopefully what I've said, you can see that there's going to be some considerable time savings, and hopefully, if done well, like an increasing in the output of our staff, so we're able to be more effective and more efficient. We predict that, and quite conservatively, that if we were to use each assistant once a day for the working days in a year, and then compare the time of a normal member of staff or a member of staff with AI, and the difference between the two, we'd save around 1,500 days per year, and that's across a team of 25 people, which is a huge amount. And the value of, if you got the average salary per minute of our staff and times it by the time saving difference, that's going to be between 500 and 800,000 pounds. So there is a huge ROI here with AI. And that can, as you kind of indicated earlier, that we've got 25 staff, but we're able to project as if we're a lot bigger and we're a larger organization doing more for our members. And you can even see that with our membership satisfaction survey. I think it went from 7.7 last year, and in a year it's now gone up to 8.8, which was the biggest year-on-year increase that we've ever had. And there's lots of comments about the notion that we're doing a lot more, a lot better in more areas than ever before.
And that's great. Yeah, absolutely.
So that's on like the business side, but there's actually the biggest benefit that I've had, and I've said this before, is that because it's helping out with repetitive or administrative work, many of our staff are able to work more creatively, collaboratively, strategically, that ultimately enriches their jobs and makes them better able to like get value from working here, which is great for us because we're not having the conversations of, oh my goodness, this admin is really draining the life out of me. And actually there was an example 2 weeks ago. One of our membership executives, which used to be a very admin-based role, and I was so proud of this, they had to do elections and then satisfaction surveys, and all of that used to be manual. Now using AI to help them do that a lot faster. And as a result, for the first time, they had more time to strategically think, what member benefits do we want? So he asked our membership guru, what could we do? And they found out that because we serve a lot of people who are on the tools, but we don't have a member benefit provider that gives discount to companies for tools. So we did some research with AI, and he found Toolstation and Screwfix would be good member benefit partners. He then went and did research on them, created a presentation for them, all through AI, and he just presented it to them last week. And it's gone quite well. They want to have a follow-up conversation. And I think that's the perfect example of how AI is able to transform people's roles, save time in admin, reinvest that into more strategic areas. And he was over the moon. He got so much fulfillment out of doing that particular thing, having the ownership, making a difference. And it was just awesome to see.
That's cool. So let's whiz through some more areas. So yeah, we've been working on this for 18 months or so. So there's a lot of learning on what was right and what was wrong. A lot of our customers and organizations we're dealing with don't quite know where to start. So what would your advice be, and what aids can we provide to help them?
Yeah, so I completely know where many people are because I was there, and we've just been almost stumbling through this bit by bit. But it's been a really interesting journey. The first thing that I would like someone to say to me is AI can be really daunting, and don't worry about that because it's moving fast and it can be really complex in some applications. But that is not to say that all AI has got to be complex. Just because some of it is, and I might not understand it, doesn't mean that every application of it will be. And it took me a while to figure that out and realize that it is something I can approach. It is something I can train a team on. It is something we can benefit from. That would just be the top line message. There's some do's and don'ts that I think would be quite useful to know. It's definitely get the policies, governance, data security sorted. Definitely invest in training and create that environment for your team, and foster a culture of curiosity and making it sure that something you're talking about on a weekly basis, rather than having it people doing it in shadow channels. And one way of doing that is having AI champions within each department. They can have a departmental meeting, and then in your ops team, you can meet with the AI champions every month. It's been quite useful. If I'm talking to people now, I would say go and get those resources from Smart Impact. They're derived from a lot of what we've done. So template AI policies, training materials. I think there's going to be also some surveys that you can use to send around to your staff to get their feedback at the start, the middle, and the end. That's really important. People in meetings, many of us know this, aren't always as open as you would expect. Some people are really quiet, but they've got great insights. Doing anonymous surveys was really useful because it will highlight the pain points your business has, and that gives ideas for how AI can fix it, but also you can see where people are with it, which was useful. And I think, yeah, maybe just start with something small. After you've use the resources to set up the training, the policies, the environment, and the governance. Just start with something small. It doesn't have to solve the whole business at once. Just find the biggest problem that's either annoying you or your team and try and solve it. And I think that you'll be quite surprised to see the progress you can make.
Well, we've worked together to provide a few sort of where do I start aids. So maybe you want to talk just a little bit about those. And in the audience, if you scan that QR code, you'll be able to go straight to the website and to download these tools. But Adam, if you'd like to just describe a couple of them and where they may help people.
Okay, so I think one of the ones that is on there from memory is almost an insert name AI policy, which could be really useful if you don't want to have to create an AI policy from scratch. There's a really good one there. You just chuck in your company details, and there's variable brackets for where you'll need to change things based on your system, your staff, your policies. That can save a lot of time. I think that's also accompanied with almost a one-page handout that you can then give to your staff, because yes, they might not read through a whole policy, but they might read through a one-page document of it, which can be useful. I think there's some tips and tricks on how to get tips and tricks sounds so corny, I'm sorry. I think there's like a guide on how to get the best from AI. So like ask it to ask you questions, check everything, pretend it's a conversation, which can be really useful for just getting people started with it. And I can't remember what other resources there are, but those three
We're building them out all of the time as well. So if any of you in the audience look through and have suggestions on what can be improved or what can be added, then we would certainly be very interested in building that out so it's a complete set of resources that people can start to use. So yeah. Okay, well let's move on to I've seen some of the questions that are in the chat, and maybe this will help answer some of those. We're running quite a lot of these sessions at the moment, and so what we'd like to do is get some feedback from you guys about what you'd like us to cover more. So I saw in the chat some people would like a few demos maybe, but a little bit more. Maybe we can talk about how you tune these things and make them expert about your organization and so on. So if you'd like to look at these areas and vote on those that you think are going to be most useful to you, then that would be very good. So we'll run that for 30 seconds or so and see what people think. And while that's coming through, If we just talk again, so I just covered the AI resources. So again, that's the site that you can go to start downloading these guides, governance guides, where it can apply, example use cases, and so on. We've also got future sessions, not necessarily about AI, but please just keep going to our events page. You'll see we run a whole series of different events throughout the year. All of those we've previously run are all available for download over the last 2 or 3 years as well. So there's always going to be something that's interesting and relevant to almost everyone there. But that's that. So we'll move on to a little bit of audience Q&A. But Alan, do you want to do that and talk about the poll results?
Absolutely. Well, the poll results seem pretty compelling to me. That the most popular thing would be some AI in action. And we've had questions about the assistants you're using, particularly if you're chaining them, Adam. So I think there's a popular call for AI in action at a future webinar. So that's a really clear signal. We've only got a few minutes left for the Q&A. So Adam, if I could just ask you a couple of questions. There's a lot of curiosity about what went wrong and what other people could learn from it, so they don't exactly make the same mistakes that you might have made. So would you mind giving the kind of top level of what kind of things you found went wrong, and then you corrected them and made it work?
Yeah, certainly. And I don't know if I'm being cheeky to ask this, Alan, but whilst I'm doing that, could we have a poll on what areas of business we want to see demos of? Because saying yes to demos is cool, but there's so many of them. I'm not sure what would be most interesting to people, if that's okay.
Very good. No, that's very good. We can do that as part of the webinar follow-up. Absolutely.
Okay, cool. And okay, so some of the things that didn't go too well, I think I could have, in hindsight, could have been a bit better at the communication side of things. I've only recently realized that why AI is useful to staff and how it empowers them. But at the start, I perhaps wasn't as clear with saying that, and it was more focus on cost and time savings, which are quite hard for people to get behind. So that was, I would say, a mistake that I made. Whereas now, whenever I'm talking to people, it's very much putting them first. It will empower you, and I'll talk about examples like the one of the membership executive, and that really reframes people's perspective with it. Secondly, about communication, I think it's really important to highlight that it's not about replacement. It's not A or B.
Yes.
It should be as well as rather than instead of. And those two things simultaneously would have made a big difference to like the adoption and the change management internally. On some technical sides. That's a really good one.
That's a really good point that you could make easily and cheaply as part of your journey right at the beginning to avoid that problem. So thanks, Adam. Yes, do please carry on.
So on the technical side, I alluded to it earlier, but from what we've seen, and you guys might have better luck with it, don't try and do too much. If you try and get one assistant to do everything, it can be really hard to control the variance, because the way that I see it is that AI can almost be anything. It's like a stem cell. It's with a chat, it could almost be anything. You could say to it, I want you to write a Stoic poem as Eminem, and it can do it. Or you could want a PhD level explanation of a task. Like, they're worlds away. So it can be really hard to reduce the variance and AKA get a structured output that's consistent with your brand and the way that you want it. And the more you ask any one given AI assistant to do, it's harder to control the variance of that output. So focus on what is the one specific thing you really want it to do, and like the task as a whole. Make multiple assistants and make sure that they're all being quite fine-tuned and structured in their output. But I would love to have one master assistant, but it just didn't work.
That's really good learning. Thank you very much. I think we just got one final question, and then there's a whole bunch that we won't have time for, unfortunately. There are lots of questions about how much it cost you to deploy your AI tool set? And I'm going to guess it's mostly your time, but are you able to put any numbers to cost or time in terms of what it's taken at the FIA to get you where you are?
True cost is going to be something I don't have off the top of my head, because I haven't accounted the countless hours and weeks that I've been spending on this with Smart Impact as part of the digital transformation. But the licensing costs for the ChatGPT Teams things are relatively affordable. But if we think about
the time,
it's something we need to do some more analysis on, I would say, because yeah, there's direct costs which are very low. The licenses are 20 to 30 quid a month, but then there's the time spent on it. We haven't spent a lot of time on a cost benefit analysis because it's quite clearly immense. Those figures that Adam was mentioning before, about 5, 6, 7, 800,000 pounds a year and 1,500 days saved for a 25-man organisation, is nothing like the effort that was put into it. So the return on investment is huge, but we do need to produce some more collateral around that, and we'll put that in our download area. So I think that's a good question to ask, and we'll address that. But I think we're probably running to the end now, so I'll wrap this up for today, but we'll take the voting and put up some new events in the future as well. But just to recap, what we've done with Adam in FIA is completely transferable to other organisations because of the way it's been structured, and it gives you a massive head start against trying to do it yourself. So if any of you are interested in talking to us about how we can take that forward in your organisation, then we'd be very happy to take you through it in a lot more detail, explain the steps, the tasks, the commitment that we would need from you, and then you can start to achieve those same sorts of return on investment and same sort of savings that Adam's been highlighting here. So thank you all for attending. I hope it's been worthwhile. I hope it's been interesting, and we'll be publishing some new events soon based on the feedback you've given us. We'll also circulate emails with the content and links to the recording. And also we'll be asking for a little bit more feedback on exactly what sort of demos you want, because that was the clear winner in the feedback we had about next subject. So look out for those emails. They'll be coming over the next few days. Usually takes us a couple of days to wrap the collateral up together. But thank you very much. I hope that was useful for you. Goodbye.